Alright, let's talk about Starfield. It's been almost 2 years since Bethesda's space RPG first launched, and honestly, the game's journey so far has been a little rocky. When it first dropped in September 2023, it felt like the entire gaming world was holding its breath to see what this game would hold. This was Bethesda's first new IP in over 25 years, the follow-up to Skyrim and Fallout that was supposed to redefine open-world RPGs. And at first, things seemed great. The game launched to strong sales, pulling in over 552,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch at its peak and over 330,000 concurrent players on Steam alone. People were excited to explore over 1,000 planets, build their own spaceships, and carve their own path in a vast procedurally generated universe. But after the initial excitement wore off, cracks started to show in the game's philosophy. The main criticism of the game, Starfield felt way too big and way too empty. The planets, while of course plentiful, lacked meaningful content for the players. The main story itself was good in my opinion, but the total package did not live up to what Bethesda's other games have in the past. And the role-playing depth, the thing that Bethesda games have been known for in the past, just wasn't there, at least before Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 and all of that mess. But fast forward to today, and the numbers tell the story. Starfield's player count on Steam has dropped by 99% since launch. The Twitch viewership is down to just a handful of people at any given time. Even Fallout 4, a game that's almost a decade old at this point, is pulling in higher numbers. That's obviously not a great sign for a game that was supposed to be Bethesda's next big series. But here's the thing, Bethesda isn't giving up on Starfield just yet. In fact, they've made it pretty clear that they have big plans for the game in 2025. So let's talk about what's coming next and whether it's enough to turn things around for this game. But before we get into it, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Starfield news. Also, if you're interested, consider becoming a member on the channel for early access on every video, members only content, your name in the credits of every video, the ability to write in and have your comments featured, and access to the Discord community. Bethesda's first attempt to breathe new life into Starfield came in September 2024 with the release of the game's first major expansion, Shattered Space. On paper, it sounded very promising. This new expansion took players to a new planet called Va'ruun Kai, the mysterious homeworld of House Va'ruun, a faction from the base game that had been teased but not fully explored. The expansion further added a new city, some cool new quests for players to experience, and a handful of new enemy types. It even introduced some new ship customization options and weapons to the game. Sounds good, right? Well, not really. A lot of the new stuff was pretty cool, but the main story in Shattered Space was very short. Most players finished it in under 10 hours. The quests were pretty basic in themselves, relying heavily on fetch missions and basic combat throughout the expansion. It's true that the new areas were very cool to look at, but there wasn't much to do once the story wrapped up. Steam reviews for Shattered Space are sitting at mostly negative right now, which says a lot about it. Overall, players were not impressed with this expansion, and honestly, they had a right to feel that way. Bethesda has a history of putting out amazing expansions. The Shivering Isles expansion from Oblivion, Skyrim's Dawnguard and Dragonborn DLCs, and Fallout 4's Far Harbor are still regarded as some of the best DLCs ever made by the studio. Compared to those past expansions for their previous games, Shattered Space just did not measure up to all of it. It wasn't a disaster overall, but it wasn't the win that Starfield desperately needed at the time. So that brings us to Bethesda's recent tease. In a response to a fan asking about the game's future, Bethesda posted this on social media. "We know you're eager for an update, and we truly appreciate your passion for Starfield. The team has been hard at work, and while we're not ready to share specific details just yet, we have a lot of exciting things planned for the game this year that we can't wait to talk about when the time is right." Of course, this is a very vague statement, but the fact that Bethesda even said anything means they're hopefully cooking up something big for us. The last major update for Starfield came back in November 2024 when they added the Dimog rover, which I believe was a creation, but they also added some other quality of life improvements to the game. But since then, it's been pretty quiet on Starfield update. Todd Howard has already confirmed that Bethesda plans to release at least one major expansion for Starfield every year, at least as long as the game is being supported by the players. And that means we're due for another big drop at some point in 2025, probably later in the year. But if Bethesda sticks to the same timeline here they used for Shattered Space, we could see the next major expansion in September 2025, right in time for the game's second anniversary. And here's the thing, Bethesda knows they need to deliver this time. Another underwhelming expansion like Shattered Space could be the final nail in the coffin for Starfield's long-term success. But if they get it right, if they deliver something big and meaningful for the players, Starfield could have a real comeback moment. But now it's time to get into the juicy stuff, the rumors around Starfield. Last July, ZeniMax Media, Bethesda's parent company, filed a trademark for the term Starborn. If you've played Starfield's main story, that word should sound sound very familiar to you, and heads up, there's some light story spoilers ahead. The Starborn are a mysterious faction introduced in the base game's main questline. They're essentially godlike beings who have figured out how to transcend reality itself. So yeah, if the next expansion is really called Starborn, that's a pretty big clue about where Bethesda is headed next in this expansion. Expanding the Starborn storyline makes perfect sense here. It's one of the most intriguing and underdeveloped parts of the base game's main story. Imagine a theoretical expansion where you could join the Starborn, further gain their powers, and unlock new abilities tied to cosmic exploration. Bethesda could use this expansion to introduce deeper role-playing mechanics, more complex faction choices, and even new ship or base building options tied to the Starborn's advanced technology. This is exactly the kind of content Starfield needs going forward. It's not enough to just add more planets and more side quests. The game needs more meaningful player choice and deeper narrative hooks. A Starborn expansion could deliver that. Let me know down in the comments what you want to see from Starfield in 2025 and what you want this potential DLC to be about. But here's the million-dollar question around all of this. Can Bethesda save Starfield? And the answer is probably. The bones of a great game are already there. They just need to fully flesh it out and stop relying on these procedural generation tactics that are just overall boring. The combat is very solid, but it needs further fleshing out, of course. The shipbuilding system is already great, but more additions would be awesome. And the exploration mechanics, while of course flawed, have potential in the future. The game just needs more meaningful content to tie everything together. If Bethesda deliver a big story-driven expansion that further expands the Starborn storyline, adds meaningful player choice, and fixes some of the exploration issues in the game, Starfield could finally start to live up to its potential. But if the next expansion is another lightweight drop like Shattered Space, that might spell the end for Starfield's long-term prospects. Bethesda has a track record of saving games post-launch though. Fallout 76 of course had a disastrous launch back in 2018, but expansions like Wastelanders and consistent updates eventually turned it into a solid live service RPG with a thriving player base. They could absolutely pull off a similar recovery with Starfield if they commit to it and if they can go big with this next expansion, but will they choose to go all out with Starfield with the Elder Scrolls 6 being their next game on the horizon? I guess only time will tell. The smart money here says Bethesda could reveal the next big expansion at the Xbox Summer Showcase at Summer Games Fest in June. That's when they originally revealed Shattered Space last year, so that would make sense to follow that same pattern. And if the expansion really is Starborn, we could be looking at a huge narrative shift for the game, one that takes Starfield into more supernatural or cosmic territory. And in my opinion, that would be a smart move for them, especially since players felt like the base game's grounded exploration mechanics were far too repetitive. Bethesda also hinted at other content coming in 2025 beyond the next expansion. That could mean new free updates, more modding tools, and maybe even new shipbuilding or outpost options for the player. But here's the bottom line. Bethesda needs to make this next expansion count for them. Starfield still has a ton of potential, but it's running out of chances to become the game that players wanted it to be from the get-go. 2025 could be the year Starfield finally fulfills its promises, or the year it fades into obscurity entirely. Either way, it will be fascinating to watch what happens next. And now here's where things could get interesting for their 2025 plans. A PlayStation logo just showed up on Starfield's Creation Club website, and that could mean a PS5 release is on the way very soon. This was first spotted by Okami13 on Twitter, who noticed that a mod on the Creation Club site listed a PlayStation logo alongside the usual Xbox and PC logos. The mod, called Work in Progress Ship Decals by Valley's Edge, adds some ship decals to the game, but the real story is the platform listings on the mod page. Bethesda hasn't announced Starfield for PS5 just yet, so why is the logo there? Of course, it might not be a mistake. Phil Spencer recently said that Xbox is rethinking exclusives and hinted that no Xbox game would stay exclusive forever. And of course, Bethesda also teasing that exciting things are coming this year. Could a PS5 port be one of them? From a business standpoint, it of course makes sense. Starfield's player count has been dropping over time, and a PS5 release would open up the game to a whole new audience of over 75 million players. If Starfield follows the same path as other Xbox exclusives, we could see the PS5 version of the game announced alongside the next big expansion, possibly around Summer Games Fest. Of course, it's all speculation for now, but the PlayStation logo showing up on official Starfield content on their mod website feels like more than just a mistake here. If Bethesda really is planning to drop Starfield on PS5 at some point this year, that could give the game the boost it desperately needs. We'll have to wait and see, but don't be surprised if this gets confirmed at the Xbox Summer Showcase. For our last little section of the video, let's get into audience inquiries, where you can submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, or ideas for future videos. We only had one audience write in for this video, but if you want to write in, head over to the post tab on my channel. That is where the thread for upcoming videos will be posted. The one write-in for this video comes from bhaviasharma4115, and they said, should List be a faction? My thoughts, yes. A story where you help List rebuild New Londinian as the threat is now gone. With this, if they add features to make us capable of making full-scale space settlements like Fallout 4, it would be so awesome. If most planets are empty, then to populate them makes sense. And I did ask them for clarification because I couldn't remember, but List is the small group of settlers you help in the failure to communicate mission, and I guess you're asking if they should be expanded in the future. Of course, there could be potential for more factions in the future in the game, and some more settlement building additions would be very cool to see in Starfield. Maybe they can give settlers capabilities like the Sim Settlements mod does in Fallout 4, so your settlers can build out the space colonies themselves. It does sound pretty cool though to help inhabit these empty planets. But thank you for the writing, I really appreciate it. And that's all of the write-ins for this video. Like I said before, if you want to write in for future videos, head over to the post tab on my channel. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest Starfield news. And if you're looking for something else to watch, click one of the videos you're seeing on screen right now. I will see you there. Also, a huge thank you to all the amazing channel members.